QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Memorized transactions, sales receipt form. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Here we are in our memorized transactions practice file. We currently have the open windows open. You could open the open windows by going to the view dropdown, selecting the open windows list. We're taking a look at memorized transactions, specifically memorized transactions in the customer section or the accounts receivable cycle or sales cycle or collections cycle here. Last time we looked at the creation of the invoice, which would increase the accounts receivable, the other side going then to sales. And that's great, a nice form if we're going to be billing the client each month and we want to memorize the transaction, and or if we're going to be billing the client even some other different amounts that we want to then memorize what that will be so that we can then change them possibly from month to month, but remind us that we need to do it on a periodic basis. Now we can also use the create sales receipt. So the create sales receipt would be increasing some format of cash, being that either undeposited funds or the checking account itself, and the other side then would be going to sales. So once again, if we have a repeated type of transaction that we expect to be paid on a repeated basis, and this one more likely would be used if we have some kind of electronic type of transfer that would be set up, meaning we expect to be paid each month. We don't really have the need to be invoicing each month because there's an electronic basically payment cycle that's set up. So then possibly we would just want to make the create sales receipt each time. And this is a nice little double check that we can have, because even if we're getting the money each month on a bank feed, then we want to basically double check it on our side. We'd like to record it on our side and then tie it to the bank feed. So if we create the sales receipt that will record it on our side, then we can tie it to the bank feeds when it clears the bank or when we do the bank reconciliation, and that'll give us that double check in case something goes wrong, in case the payments start or stop coming in. We'll be able to see it on our side because we'll be creating the sales receipt. So we're going to open this thing up. We're going to say create a sales receipt, similar to the invoice type of form, but once again, it's going to be increasing some form of cash, typically the undeposited funds. So I'm going to then say this is going to be customer number 4, and we're going to quickly add that. And I'm going to put the date of 09/15/20. I'm going to assume we're getting some kind of e-check or an e-type of payment, an electronic type of payment. Note that the current month is October for me, so I'm entering this a month prior so that I can then test the memorized transaction that will be a month later, which will then say that it's due now in the current month so that we can test that out. So then I'm going to say this is going to be item 1, which we set up last time. So this is just an item with a $100 amount for it. Let's say we sell 6 of those and we expect that to be a repeated transaction, and we have the e-check set up, so we're going to get electronically paid in some way, shape, or form. So when I record this, it's going to increase undeposited funds. Other side's going to be going then to sales, and then we can match that out against basically if we have bank feeds, we can match it out to the bank feeds. Now note that you could set this up to go to the checking account directly instead of undeposited funds, and you could still match it out basically to the bank feeds when they go through. So either method should work if you want to match it out to the bank feeds. If you're getting some kind of e-payments and you need to group them together in some way, you might want to go through undeposited funds if they're going to show up on the bank statements differently than one payment at a time. Or if they are just going to be one payment at a time, you can set this up to go directly into the checking account, and I'll show you how to do that after we record the memorized transaction this time. So let's go to the edit drop down. Let's go to the memorized the sales receipt, and we have the options once again. I can name it some other name. I'm going to keep it customer number 4. Add to my reminders, so we can either say remind me about it so that I can then record it. Now if it's an electronic payment that we expect to be receiving, maybe we just want to record it electronically. But let's first start it off with just giving us the reminder. And then the second one would be if we just want to turn it off, but we don't want to delete the reminder. And that's what we have here. So I'm going to go to the right and say this is going to happen on a monthly basis. And then the next one I'm going to say is on 10/15, which is past the current date. So it's going to remind me now. So I'm going to say save. And let's record this. I'm going to say save and close. Save and close. And then it's been, a month since that one went by already. Time flies. It's going to be in our reminders up top. So I'm going to go up into the reminders up top. We have the memorized transaction. So memorized transaction, and here's the one on the 1015. It's also in the lists drop down. If we hit the lists drop down and take a look at the memorized transactions, there is our memorized transaction that we need right there. And that's the next one. Now, if I close this back out and I was to then open up this transaction by double clicking on it, then it goes back to the list and you can find it again. Then I can double click on this transaction. It'll then generate the sales receipt. Now, this is another one that's useful that, I mean, if for some reason the amount changed and you get an electronic payment each month, but the amount might vary, like say it's a donation or something like that for a nonprofit, then you know, you might then go in here and then just you could change the amount if it's a remembered payment, meaning I could say quantity now happens to be 4, and I can record the transaction now and be reminded to record it, but then make the adjustment before actually recording the transaction. If I save and close, there we have it. If I go to my reports, company and financial, let's just take a look at the balance sheet side to see that it is going into undeposited funds. So it's going to be going into undeposited funds here. If I go back to the home page, then we have the deposits that we would need to record here. Now, again, you could kind of match this up if you're using bank feeds that would clear, and you can tie those out to the bank feeds. If you wanted to put them directly into the checking account, then you could do that too. You have to turn on the options to do so, and that would be in the Edit dropdown, Preferences, and then you can go to the Payments on the left-hand side, Company Preferences up top, and then you want to uncheck this Use Undeposited Funds as Default Deposit. Unchecking that. Okay, it's going to have to close everything to do it. And you're going to say, all right, you got to do what you got to do, QuickBooks. And then you're going to go to the company file, open back up the home page, maximizing the home page. And then if I go back into the Create Sales Receipt, we have this option that we can say, now I don't want it to go to undeposited funds, but rather directly to the checking account. So let's do now another one. I'm going to say, let's do this one for customer number 5. Customer 5, quick add on 091520. It's going to be an e-check. We're going to say this selling item number 1, which might be like an hourly rate of some kind. Let's say we're doing three now, 3 of them. Okay, and then if I want to memorize this transaction, I can go up top and I can say Edit. We want to memorize the transaction. And this time, let's do an automate transaction entry. So I think this is going to be the same each month. I expect to be paid the same each month, possibly with an E amount. And then I'm going to tie it out. Either in the bank reconciliation, I'll be able to reconcile it, and or if I use the bank recs, I'll be able, on the bank feeds, I'll tie it out with the bank feeds. And so I'm going to say automate transaction, and we're going to say this is going to happen monthly. This is going to be on 10/15 will be the next time. Remaining number, I'm going to keep that blank, and I'll keep that as is, and okay. Now, when I record this, the difference will be that it's going to be increasing the checking account directly, because we expect it to go directly into the checking account, as opposed to undeposited funds skipping that second step. This will work if we expect to receive the payment in our checking account in the same amount, the same grouping, meaning one payment at a time, which may well be the case if we're getting electronic payments from customers automatically that are going directly into our account. Okay, so we're going to say save and close. Save and close. Now, it's not going to show in the memorized transactions for another one here because we told it just to do it, not to be in the memorized. So it's not here. But if I close this thing up and then I open it back up, and if it's past the due date, which it is, then we should see that transaction saying, hey, do you want to record this? And we'll say yes. So I'm going to say file, and I'm going to close the company. Now I'm going to open the company back up. So I'm going to double click on the company, opening the company, and see if we get the thing that's going to say, hey, do you want to record this transaction that you said that you wanted to memorize, but not be just reminded of, but us to actually record it. And so there's the pop-up that we have, and it says we want to record that. I'm going to say yes, enter the check now, enter it now, and then okay. Then I'm going to go to the view drop down and take a look at those open windows, because I like to have the windows open. Breeze is good. And then I'm going to go to the reports drop down, company and financial, and we'll go down to the balance sheet standard. Balance sheet standard. This has now been put directly into the checking account. So if I double click on the checking account, we should have those sales receipts. There's the 1, there's the 2 that we recorded in the sales receipts.